What's good? That was probably one of the weirdest nights in NBA history. There's a lot that happened that does not involve the Raptors. So let's talk about the Raptors very briefly. And let's also talk about what happened around the NBA tonight because some major upsets happened, some major blown leads, some incredible tanking came down the stretch. And you know what? Coming into this season, I knew I knew that this Cooper flag thing was going to result in some egregious examples of tanking. I know the Raptors have come under fire from, certain media talking heads, certain social media accounts about like, hey, this team should be fine, should be investigated, etc. They're not, they're obviously tanking. Clearly, I mean, look, we've been on to this since the beginning. The Raptors have been tanking since the very start of this season. They've been doing stuff that is not conducive to winning, resting guys, milking injuries, extending timelines, playing suboptimal lineups. And for the most part, they've been pretty ethical about it. Tonight, yikes. Sometimes it doesn't really matter who you play, it's when you play them. And tonight, the Raptors faced a Suns team that looked very motivated. Now, I think there's some credit, to the Raptors. They were without Emanuel Quickley. They were without RJ Barrett. They were without Jakob Poeltl tonight. And they rested Ochai Agbaji for some absolutely inexplicable reason. I have no idea why, after he looked absolutely awesome. Our offense looks putrid without RJ, says RH77. What could his motivation be? I don't think our offense looks putrid without RJ. It looked perfectly fine yesterday. Uh, no, I think what you have is a complication where you have too much of a bad thing going on right now. Right now, Jameson Battle hit a whole bunch of threes. He's also took a whole bunch of threes, but I think the complication arises when you start playing Jonathan Mobo and Colin Castleton together. That is zero spacing, and I think it's also exacerbated when Emmanuel Quickley looks like a deer with his head cut off, doesn't really understand what he's doing running the offense. It's not entirely his fault. He's navigating absolutely zero space. And then on the other hand, you have this team that, okay, reputationally, the Phoenix Suns are not a good team. They've been horrible, horrible for the last 3-4 months of the season. And, there's rumors that they're going to tear it all down. There's also rumors that they could be looking to fire Coach Bud. So okay, you could walk in thinking that maybe the Suns are just going to lay down and die, but there's no question who the more talented team was tonight. And quite frankly, the Raptors on the second night of a back-to-back just really did not bring it. They were beat to loose balls, they were beat to the offensive rebounds, and they were not the only team tonight that got beat this way. There were quite a few teams that got beat this way, and we're going to talk about that. So overall, is there a positive takeaway from this game? I don't know. There was a positive stretch for Scotty momentarily. Uh, Sorry, this is the wrong box score. Give me one sec here. But 5 for 13, certainly not what you want from Scotty Barnes. A negative 21, 16 points in 31 minutes. The first time he's cracked 30 minutes in a long time. Jameson Battle, he shoots 4 for 12 from 3, including an air ball, which was weird, but 14 points nonetheless. I do like how he gets the shots off. Jonathan Mobo looked really rusty coming back from injury, really discombobulated offensively. I think he also airballed a shot at one point, 2 points, 6 rebounds. I did like his defense. He was very aggressive on Kevin Durant, got under KD's skin a little bit. Orlando Robinson comes off the bench. He had some really impressive moments, continues to do his song and dance, 12 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists in place of Jakob Poeltl. He played 21 minutes. AJ Lawson went 12 points off the bench. Not quite the heater performance we've gotten used to, but he was stable. Then Garrett Temple struggled quite a little bit. And overall, there really isn't anything to talk about in this game. The Raptors got smoked. That second quarter was the biggest mollywhopping. They got beat 11-39. So this is after winning in the first quarter, 29-24. And then a lineup combination of Devin Booker and the following players whooped the Raptors to oblivion. And that was Royce O'Neal, who finishes the game plus 38. That is not a typo. Oso Ighodaro, plus 39. Not a typo. Cody Martin, plus 24. Not a typo. And Tyus Jones, plus 33. Shout out Minnesota basketball. Tyus Jones ripped the Raptors a new one. And honestly, a player that we have come to expect to really elevate the bench mob, which is Jamal Shed, really looked out of sorts tonight too, looked really rushed, wasn't hitting his shots. So overall, that lineup with Devin Booker really just ripped the Raptors open. I felt like the way Devin Booker was going tonight, he could have had 50 if he really wanted to chase it. He only took 15 shots. Apparently, after getting beat by the Lakers, the Suns were very, motivated. They had, I mean, I guess like Devin Booker spoke about it after the game. He's like, this is disappointing and all that stuff. So look, you just faced a team that was coming out and you just faced them at the wrong time. They wanted to send a message. I can tell you, from as someone who's watched at least 9 Suns games over the last 2 months, this is not a team that typically is going to play with this much force and is going to pick up defensively, is going to crash the offensive glass. I just think they just really found a new gear. And you know what? Hopefully for them, in the thick of the, play-in picture in the Western Conference, locked in with Sacramento, et cetera, with Dallas falling off, maybe this is something that they can build on. Maybe this is something they can bottle up. But they shot 51% from the field and 51% from three. You're not going to beat a team that shoots 51% from three and 51% from the field. You're just not going to. Credit to the Raptors. They do get to the line a little bit more. That's largely because they attacked the glass a little bit more. They attacked the paint a little bit more. But despite that, they didn't finish very well. And the Suns end up with more paint points. The paint was wide open. They led by as many as 40. They win the game literally by 40. It's crazy. Like, I don't know what else to talk about this game. I guess if you're going to take this to be like moment, prisoner of the moment, oh my God, the Toronto Raptors are terrible. They'll never be good again. Don't take games like this to mean anything. Like, it's just, it doesn't mean anything. Like, I hate to say it, it doesn't mean anything. There's games like this. I remember watching the Raptors versus the OKC Thunder live this year at, Scotiabank, and it was just like this. There's going to be 5 or 6 games like this. The Raptors are a very hardworking team. They're clearly exhausted. And you know what? Like, you have a game like last game, and I was kind of worried that there would be a bit of a hangover because it was so clear as day that the Raptors tanked that game against Portland. And you know what? These people are human. Okay, they're human. So you can keep telling them, "Hey guys, process and let's try to stay in these games." But at some point, if another team is going to punch this hard and you're going to be playing 2 non-shooters like Jonathan Mobo and Colin Castleton multiple minutes, and you're going to be mucking up your spacing and your shot's not going, and Emanuel Quickley can't buy a shot and he's just bricking shots from 29 feet, I'm sorry, like, it's going to take a lot to come back from, that type of deficit. And, the Raptors did try, they sputtered, they tried in the third quarter, they tried for the first few minutes, and then, it was just more of the same, and the Suns ended up winning the third quarter and the fourth quarter. And again, it's just like the Raptors kind of just gave up in the fourth quarter, right? So you're just playing for pride. I understand that, but this is a team that you should be proud of. They've really turned around their defense over the last couple of months. And, that's not easy. They don't exactly have a Rudy Gobert in there. It's just all heart, all hustle, all scheme, and I've been saying it for the whole year that the minute the Raptors adjust their scheme, they'll be better defensively. And earlier in the season, it seems like they just didn't have a scheme. They were just willing to live with whatever happened. You go watch the Los Angeles Lakers play right now. They're not leaving Luke on an island. They're doubling, they're blitzing, they're switching. They're doing a lot of things to protect their weaker defenders. Things that the Raptors simply refused to do earlier in the season for RJ Barrett and Grady Dick are things that every team does to protect their weaker defenders. You see what the Milwaukee Bucks do with, someone like Brook Lopez, who has been, the subject of a lot of criticism because he doesn't move his feet very well. Well, are they having him, isolated on guards on the perimeter? No, they protect him. And it's the thing that every sensible team does, whether that's the Nuggets, whether that's the Spurs, whoever, is that they go towards a scheme that maximizes their players. The Raptors really didn't do that earlier into the season. Now they started doing it a little bit more, and it's working. And, last game, I think I saw at least 6, 7 possessions of some of the best defense I've ever seen in Raptors history. Okay. That does not mean gassing it up. I'm telling you straight up, this team is communicating on a string and they're buying into their defensive principles. Tonight, it felt like they had KD's number, but that second unit just came in and just blew them open. All right. Now let's just talk about a little bit of something else that happened in the NBA tonight, because there's a lot of crazy shit that happened in the NBA. So pardon my language. The Indiana Pacers. Oh my God. Okay, where do we start? Do we start with the Denver Nuggets? Do we start with the Indiana Pacers? Or do we start with that bullshit that happened between Houston and Philly? Well, let's start chronologically. Actually, first let's start with New York and Miami. So the New York Knicks, who are without Jalen Brunson, right? They get down really big early against Miami. It was like 12 nothing or whatever. And you're thinking to yourself, Miami's up 29-18 in the first quarter. You're like, could Miami be turning a corner? This is a team that I believe is basically throwing the second half of every game they've played. And you can go and check the box score. They lose almost every second half, no matter how much they're up by, they just tear it apart. And this is a team with two guys who are borderline max players in Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero. This is a team that has, although he did not play tonight, Andrew Wiggins, and he's been scoring like a motherfucker. Like this is a team that is playing Davion Mitchell major minutes, and he's been playing relatively well for them. This is a team that has a rookie standout in Kalel Ware. They're not like a terrible basketball team. They shouldn't be this bad. They shouldn't be losing by 21 points to the New York Knicks after being up 10 points in the first quarter, but that's what they did. And they just got obliterated. This is a team that is disconnected after that Jimmy Butler trade. This is not the crazy thing that happened in the NBA. I expected the Knicks to win this game marginally, but when the Heat got up big, I was like, oh, maybe we'll get a competitive game. Nope, blowout. This game was insane. The Houston Rockets, not quite healthy. Okay, they're missing, a very, very impressive Thompson twin, Amen Thompson, but they have Fred VanVleet back. They have Alperen Sengun. They have Tari Eason, who's a hell of a defender. They got Jabari Smith coming off the bench. They got Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green. Okay, that's basically their core. Okay, that's their core rotation minus Amen Thompson. And oh, by the way, they're facing off against the Sixers, who have no Tyrese Maxey. They have no Joel Embiid, and they have shut down Paul George for the season. And they have no Jared McCain. And they didn't play Gershon Yabusele tonight, who has been really good for them. And they didn't play Kelly Oubre, who's been pretty good for them. And it didn't matter because apparently Quentin Grimes was going to beat the Houston Rockets all by himself. The Houston Rockets were down 25 fucking points against the Philadelphia 76ers. And I thought, wow, first of all, number one, the Chicago Bulls beat the brakes off the Utah Jazz, another team that completely tanks in the second half. There's some crazy tanking going on in the NBA right now. And I'm thinking to myself, are the Houston Rockets really about to gift the Raptors a Sixers win right now? Is this really going to happen? And with 55 seconds to go, it was definitively going to happen. It was like you could not tell me that you would have bet $1 million. Like, hang on. What's the score here? Hang on. Let me pull it up. 1 minute and 4 seconds to go. The score is 129-121 for Philly. They're up by 8. This is as insurmountable a lead as it comes. What was their win probability at the time, you ask? They were 98% favored to win this game, and then they ended up losing it. They give up an open layup to Jalen Green, and then on a free throw that misses, they give up a putback to Alperen Sengun, which forces overtime, and then they proceed to lose in overtime by 7. 13-6, outscored in overtime. Unbelievable. Worth noting in this game, Mr. Fred VanVleet, a player who has caught a lot of strays from me, 3 points on 1 for 6 shooting, ridiculous in 38 minutes, and he gets ejected after a flagrant foul. A very, first of all, should have just gotten ejected for that egregious flop. But O'Shea Brissett going up for a layup, and Fred VanVleet just shoves him. He gets ejected. So they actually did this after Fred VanVleet got ejected. So ironically, if Fred VanVleet doesn't lose his cool and doesn't get tossed out of yet another game this year because his max contract hunt isn't going so well, I can tell you 100% the Houston Rockets were going to lose this game. to the Philadelphia 76ers. And yeah, that would have really helped the Raptors because the Raptors did end up losing tonight and the Bulls did end up winning. So, like it's clear what the Raptors are doing right now. All I'm saying is, oh my God, being down 25 to a team this bad, the Houston Rockets have got major problems. Like they've been doing pretty well since Fred VanVleet's return, but this game was eye-opening. Okay, the Indiana Pacers. Another game that features an ejection of a prominent point guard, one with Canadian roots, Andrew Nembhard. Another game in which a lot of players did not play basketball. Pascal Siakam, out. Miles Turner, out. Tyrese Halliburton, out. Minnesota, at home. And midway into the second quarter, if I recall correctly, or third quarter, early in the third quarter, Rudy Gobert, Andrew Nembhard goes into Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert shoves him. Andrew Nembhard had already picked up a technical foul at that point. Nembhard throws the ball at Rudy Gobert, and they both get tossed, which ironically does help the Minnesota Timberwolves at that time because Andrew Nembhard was cooking. Like he had 12 points, he was doing really well, and in place of Tyrese Halliburton, it tends to be big Nembhard games. So now, in place of Nembhard, TJ McConnell comes in, and the Pacers were up by 7 at that point, 7 or 6 around that, and they had been up pretty much the entire game up until that point. The Pacers had a really dominant second quarter, and then when that happens, Minnesota goes on a huge run, and then somehow, this game ends up going into overtime, and you're thinking it's definitely going to be Minnesota, and Minnesota goes up big in overtime. I think they were up 6-5, and then we get the Obi Toppin show. Oh my God, Obi Toppin hit 2 threes to ice this game. If you watch this live, this was insane. 45 minutes for Obi Toppin, 34 points, 10 rebounds. This is a guy that the New York Knicks basically threw away. And it kind of goes to show you that development goes a really long way. When you have talent, when you have this kind of athleticism, I'm not a huge Obi Toppin guy. I can't stand his defense. I think his basketball IQ is crazy, but I will accept the L where the L is acceptable. He banked a 3 from the top, and then he hit a moving 3 on the corner, tiptoeing the sideline to ice this game for the Pacers. What a complete breakdown. Okay, now this is not the craziest. I mean, this is one of the craziest results. I mean, you did not come into this game expecting the Indiana Pacers to have a shot in hell in this game. This game is probably even crazier. No Jamal Murray for the Denver Nuggets. They're coming off a spanking in which they lost to the Washington fucking Wizards. Okay, let's get this straight. You lose to the Wizards with the MVP or 3-time MVP, Nikola Jokic, with Jamal Murray. Next game, Nikola Jokic is out. Jamal Murray is out. You are starting Aaron Gordon, Hunter Tyson, Peyton Watson, Michael Porter Jr., and Russell fucking Westbrook against one of the hottest teams, if not the second hottest team in the NBA, the Golden State Warriors. By the way, you're on the road, and they spanked them. They beat them wire to wire. The Denver Nuggets, I don't think the Denver Nuggets led for a second in this. Sorry, I don't think they trailed for a second in this game. I would like to confirm that. Okay, they trailed by 1 point in the first quarter. After that, they never, ever trailed in this game. Down the stretch, a lot of boneheaded mistakes from Steph Curry, including a wild toss-up alley-oop attempt on the break, which was a total, like, this is just a game where, guys like Vlatko Čančar, Aaron Gordon, Peyton Watson just banded together, and you just saw hustle, and you saw a team that had been embarrassed. You saw a team that was really together, and you saw a team that was playing with house money. They came in and were like, nobody expects us to win tonight. Let's go and shock the world. Oh my God. Okay. This is insane. When you think about it, the Denver Nuggets, who are notoriously a bad defense, perimeter, interior, etc., to go in there on the road and shut the hell out, like shut down the Golden State Warriors offense is so crazy and such an unexpected. That's just nuts. That's nuts. Tariq saying Scotty had KD on straps. I think a lot of people, contributed to that. I think Scotty had some really positive moments on KD, but yeah, I think Jonathan Mobo has some good moments. I can tell you who didn't have good moments. AJ Lawson did not have good moments on KD. But overall, I don't think KD necessarily had a great game. But overall, this is a nutty game in the NBA. From the perspective of what this means for the Raptors, et cetera, et cetera, I mean, there's some good things that you can take away from this. Number one, your second round pick continues to get worse as Portland continues to roll. They win the second straight. They beat the Washington Wizards. Obviously, from a tanking perspective, that kind of helps because it puts a little bit of a distance between Toronto and Portland. And also, so like two teams that are pretty much right there nipping at your heels in Portland and Chicago, they both win tonight while you get blown out in epic proportions. Okay. It's also worth noting that San Antonio, another team that's sort of nipping at your heels now, they also ended up losing. So we'll look at the Tankathon standings very briefly, but overall, this is where we're at. We are at 7th, and this is exactly where I said we'd probably be. And you know what? If we don't watch it, like obviously I expect us to lose on Thursday, Golden State, so you can tack another loss. But San Antonio, Miami, Chicago, like these teams are losing hard, bro. Like they are coming for your lunch. Okay. And if you don't watch it, these teams are looking like they're about to go on like a 15-game losing streak to end the season. Okay. Miami, don't look now, is in the lottery. How the hell did this happen? 29 and 39. They're in the lottery. What? Nah, that can't be. They're in the play-in. Yeah, they're in the play-in. So Miami and Chicago will be in the lottery once they get bounced in the play-in. Right now, they're in the play-in somehow. But right now, if you're the Toronto Raptors, you got two teams behind you, and you are separated by 4.5 games from both of them. Okay, Chicago won tonight, so they are now tied with Miami. So Miami is basically trying to get under Chicago, which they're doing a fantastic job because they've lost 8 straight. Utah, unimaginably, has lost 10 straight. You see all these losing streaks and you see the records. There are 2 positive win-loss records in the lottery right now over the last 10 games. That's the Toronto Raptors, 6-4, and the Chicago Bulls, 6-4. Okay? There are no moral victories here. I got to tell you, no moral victories here. Okay? At this point, we are firmly in that part of the season where you need to strip this shit down and you need to tank. Okay? You need to stop. Also, I just want to give a little shout out here, not a positive shout out, but a negative shout out to Josh Lewenberg, who continuously harps on this point that the Raptors are continuing to play Scotty Barnes because of some misguided attempt to get him All-NBA eligibility. I want to be clear about something. This is a point that I echoed probably 5 months ago when All-NBA was still in the realm of possibilities. At this point, with the Raptors record and with Scotty's own performance and dwindling and declining numbers, this is not possible. Scotty is not an idiot, okay? He is not an idiot. Josh L is a pro. Professional what? Professional what? What is he a pro at? What's he a pro at? He's a moron. Okay, let me be clear about something. This is not about what you think it is about. It is likely about the fact that the league has a certain expectation that you play people who made the All-Star team over the last few years. And so, since the Raptors don't really have any other All-Stars and you don't necessarily want to draw the ire of the league, Scotty playing is actually really beneficial for you avoiding penalties from the league. Because as long as you continue to play your lone All-Star, they're not necessarily going to be raising a fuss. If you see the teams that are getting fined, it is largely because they're holding out max money type of guys. It's guys like Lauri Markkanen. Now, what does Lauri Markkanen have, that Walker Kessler doesn't have? I don't know, an all-star selection. That would be one thing. So I do think that it is very relevant that there you go. There you go. So I just think that it's important to make sure that people do not start to see Scotty as some sort of selfish guy chasing, his super max contract. that's never been the point. If at any point this season he really wanted to do that, he probably, and I'm assuming, would have figured out that his numbers are not very good, and he probably would have started jacking up like, 26, 28 shots a game. But that's not what he's doing. He's totally fitting into the team culture. He's totally, stabilizing the defense. He's doing all the intangible stuff, and most of that stuff is not what gets awarded for All NBA. So I don't think he's being held hostage. I think they've made it very clear to him what they're doing, and he's totally bought into it. I also don't necessarily think that players being okay with this necessarily means that those players are losers or whatever. Jakob Poeltl, said it really, really well a few games ago, where he said, look, these are my bosses. And when my bosses tell me, like, at the end of the day, they're the employers. And is Kayla Gray the only Raptors media that likes Scotty other than Penn, of course? No, I think there are some people who like Scotty. I think there are some people who like Scotty. Obviously, there are a lot of people who do not like Scotty, and that's perfectly fine with me. I don't really care. I don't watch that. But Kayla Gray is definitely a real one for sure. I think Blake likes Scotty. I think Blake's perfectly cool with Scotty. I don't think that he dislikes Scotty. He probably has a lot of friends who don't like Scotty very much. I think Josh Lewenberg and Samson Folk have said a lot of nice things about Scotty lately, and I'm sure they have their issues with him, but shit, those probably fair issues. Yeah, I think that's it. Most like Scotty, they just don't see him as a superstar. I think that's probably fair. And you know what? Like, if you don't think Scotty's a superstar, I'm not really one to fight with you anymore. I get it. I understand why you might feel that way. I personally feel that he will have superstar impact. And, I think once you sort of create a lineup around him that makes a little bit more sense basketball wise. I mean, we saw it, tonight with Devin Booker, right? You put role players around him, you put the right lineup around him, you put Tyus Jones. Again, see, sometimes with these very expensive rosters, and I think it's worth noting that Bradley Beal did not play tonight. Sometimes with these very expensive rosters, and sometimes players and coaches, they start getting, bogged down into playing the contract. You want to play the contract, you want to play your new signing. But then sometimes from a basketball perspective, it's really your third stringer, your third string point guard or your third string center that makes a little bit more sense with that lineup. So I just think sometimes, you need to lean into the basketball and what makes sense for basketball wise, right? And what makes sense basketball wise for the Raptors is playing Scotty as many minutes as possible with guys like Jakobi and Ochai and Grady and RJ and Brandon Ingram. Like these are the I think these are the guys that make sense. You know, I think that makes sense. I think Jamal Shed, like Jamal Shed's synergy with him, when he's shooting well, it's typically good. But I just don't think the Raptors process tonight was very good, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like there were so many times where there's an advantage in transition and IQ takes an extra two dribbles and it's gone. Or there's an angle to drive and it's just not it's they don't drive. Or there's an open pass to a corner shooter and then they don't make that pass or the pass goes late or it just sails out of bounds. So it was just a very sloppy game for the Raptors. How long is Grady out for? I really don't know. He's been out for a while, hasn't he? So RH77 said IQ can run an O. If you say so. If you say so. I don't think he can run an offense right now. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I agree with you. No, he struggled so much. I mean, it's shocking me. Look, I never saw him as like a pure point guard. I understand he was a little bit cagey when he was asked about, running point full time in the NBA and how he played a lot of off ball in New York. That is definitely a role that he is more situated to and suited to because he just does not read the game fast enough, man. It's like he is like openings are fractions of a second, right? You have to orient your decisions to manipulate those openings, create those openings. Like if on the basis level of being a basketball player in the NBA, you have to be able to identify the openings, right? On the star levels, maybe on the starter level, you have to be able to punish the openings. Now, at the superstar level, and I'm talking like 34, 35% usage type of levels, I think you have to be able to manipulate and create openings. And I just don't think like Emanuel Quickley even like can get to the starter level right now of just identifying and exploiting openings. It's an open driving lane. Defense miscommunicates. You're driving, but you're driving into traffic. You're not driving away from traffic. Like it's small things, but when you see it, you just, you know, uh, um, friend of this channel, Leo, he started a new podcast and he made a comment on a post a few days ago, and I address it here, where he said that Emanuel Quickley and Scotty Barnes should have more of a relationship like DeMontis Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. And I gotta tell you, I really, really, really hated that comment. Like I can't tell you how much I hate that comment. First of all, Scotty not DeMontis Sabonis. Number one. Number two, Emanuel Quickley is not De'Aaron Fox. Like that is a very warped perception. Like right now, there's so many guards in the NBA that you probably don't identify as pure point guards that would do a better job of running a point for this team. Players like Malik Monk, right? Players like Tyus Jones, shoot. Players like DeLon Wright. There's plenty of guys who have more natural abilities in this. Now, Emanuel Quickley has a lot of talents. He has a lot of talents, but he's been weak defensively this year, which is really making it so that he has like, if you're going to be weak as a playmaker relatively, and you're going to be weak as a defender, then you have to be the most lights out shooter to even justify 85% of that contract. And he hasn't been lights out as a shooter, and he hasn't. He just hasn't been. So I'm kind of praying at this point. I mean, I trust the guy. I trust his work ethic. I trust his process, and I trust, the pedigree. He's been a really good player for a very long time, and he's been on a steady incline. So I don't think he's about to just get fat, now that he's been paid. I just think this is a really messy season for him in terms of sorting out his role and getting comfortable and catching rhythm. There have been positive moments over, his first year and a bit with the Raptors so far. So I'm hoping that next year with Brandon Ingram and with Scotty Barnes, he can settle into a more off-ball role. And yeah, it's not that he hasn't improved defensively. He's actually regressed significantly from the version of him that I saw with New York. So he's going to have to really lock in this summer and really, really hope that the Raptors don't have lemon on their hands here, because I very much, was a little bit caught off guard by the number on that contract. 32.5 million. I calmed down a little bit when I found out that the deal was flat, because it's like, okay, you trust the guy, whatever. But I think we can all agree that there was a significant amount of upside baked into that contract. And if he flatlines on the player that he was last year, or the player he's been this year, that's going to be tough. Now, I certainly think that he's a starter in the NBA. I certainly think that. But you do not pay a starter, because I'll remind you that Denny Avdia is making $14 million. And, there's a player like Trey Murphy who's making relatively around what Emanuel Quickley is making, if not a little bit less. And I know I just mentioned two Pelicans, and the Pelicans are notoriously cheap, which is why Brandon Ingram wanted out. But you also like, again, Denny Avdia is not he was signed to that deal by the Washington Wizards. Denny Avdia's impact on winning so far this year has been on par, if not greater, than Emanuel Quickley. So, for Emanuel Quickley to justify a 32.5 valuation, I think he's going to have to be a really like much more improved defender. And I think he's going to have to be a much better playmaker. And I think the shooting is going to have to come. So he has to improve on all levels, right? If he does flatline, is he even a tradable contract? Like, how do you get off that? I mean, I think the positive thing with Emanuel Quickley is he doesn't, he's young. He's 25 years old. He doesn't come with a lot of baggage. Seems to be very well liked around the NBA. Shooting is a very valuable skill around the NBA. So, it won't be a positive contract, but it won't be like Bradley Beal. Do you know what I mean? It's not Paul George. It's not unmovable. It's not an unmovable contract. You just probably have to move off of a pick to get off of it. And no, honestly, like, why do I have to give that money to either player? Honestly, like, I think there's just more valuable archetypes in the NBA. I just don't believe in, giving $30+ million to non-superstars who are defensive liabilities. That's my prerogative, right? Like, you got Aaron Gordon making $20 million a year. Okay. Like, to put that into context, $23 million a year. He impacts winning on both ends. We saw it tonight, right? So I don't know. I don't know. But obviously, I don't think Emanuel Quickley is designed to. And I mean, again, like let's be fair to Emanuel Quickley, right? Brandon Ingram and Jakob Poeltl make life a lot easier for a guard like him. Okay, they're going to make life a lot easier. They're going to stabilize the offense, the screen setting. He's working in pick and roll with Colin Castleton. Okay, this is not like this is a very easy thing for the defense to solve. So I just think overall, like Emmanuel Quickley's been put in some very, very uncomfortable positions. Maybe the Raptors want to put him in uncomfortable situations because they want to see what he can do and then what he can't do. Because this is the type of position that you would honestly have to be a superstar to thrive in, and he's not a superstar. So, you just have a lot of players who are being put in roles that maybe they're very uncomfortable with, and it's leading to a lot of losing. And look, if you, as the Phoenix Suns, for instance, right, if you wanted to run your offense through Grayson Allen as KD and Booker just stand around and watch, you lose every single game this year, right? If the Los Angeles Lakers wanted to run their offense to Dorian Finney-Smith as LeBron and Luka camp out onto the perimeter, they lose every single game. There's a reason why players fulfill certain roles, and it's because they're optimized. Their skill sets are optimized for those roles. So if you, as a team, are deliberately going to hijack that entire process, and you're going to put players in positions where they're just not doing what they're best at, then you're going to lose a lot of games, and it's going to look bad. And you're hopefully going to learn a lot, and hopefully those players are going to learn a lot. But with Emanuel Quickley, with Scotty Barnes, with Brandon Ingram next year, and with possibly a high lottery pick coming in, I'll be very curious to see if Emanuel Quickley's role doesn't go right back to closer to what it was with New York. Again, all the on-ball reps are going to help. At some point or another, he's going to have to create a little bit more off the bounce. It's not like he didn't play point at all in New York. He had plenty of reps with the ball. It just, when it comes down to winning time, his skill sets right now are much better suited off the ball. And again, I felt very similarly about Fred VanVleet. And I just happen to like Emanuel Quickley 100 times more. So I'm maybe a lot nicer about how I say that. But yes, if you're going to have the basketball in your hands as a lead initiator, you're going to have elite vision and elite burst. You're going to have some sort of skill that can get you open or force doubles consistently. Tonight, Scotty got doubled a couple times. It was very interesting to see Orlando Robinson get doubled, twice. But other than that, like, there really aren't a lot of guys who are forcing collapses across. And, Emanuel Quickley is someone who's going to thrive with more space, not less. So the Raptor spacing issues have been atrocious all year. And, it's just going to continue being this way. There have been a lot of positive surprises for the Raptors this year. There's a lot to take away from this season. And RJ actually did play really, really well in the playoffs for the Knicks. It's worth noting. Emanuel Quickley played terribly in the playoffs for the Knicks. So, I don't know. Very small sample size, though, for both players. James saying, rather have Jakob starting and IQ as a sixth man. Look, I have no doubt that Emanuel Quickley is one of the 4 best players on this team right now. No doubt. What I'm positive about, though, is that once the talent declines around him and he's asked to kind of create out of a shoebox the way he was tonight, that all the holes that are in his game are going to be exposed. Now, again, for the Raptors, who've made a pretty lengthy 5-year investment in Emanuel Quickley, maybe this is all part of the process. This is just something that's just, for him to identify that, hey, your handle is going to have to get a lot tighter. You're going to have to get a lot stronger. The layup package and the finishing around the rim is going to have to get a lot better. Your shot is probably going to have to change at some point. I think, one of the biggest issues with him playing on the ball is he just has a really flat forward slow release. And if you watch most elite on-ball creators, they usually have a really high quick release. So if you watch someone like a Devin Booker or you watch someone like a Donovan Mitchell, it's not just the handle, it's not just the burst, it's not just the craft, it's not just the size, it's not just the wingspan, all that stuff. Emanuel Quickley has a lot of good things going for him there. But if you look at an Emanuel Quickley versus a Malik Monk, or you look at an Emanuel Quickley versus Tyrese Maxey, it's really just coming down to how flat his shot is. and how long the load time on that shot is, which basically forces him to have to shoot much deeper than everybody else, or he's going to have to just flourish off the ball, right? So when you're on the ball, you're just not going to be open as much. He's not open as much. And, when he is open, it's because he's taking a shot from 32 feet. So it's really coming down to that. He is one of the few players on this team that positively contributes to spacing, which is good. He's always defended. And I just think that with better shooters around him, he would actually flourish very much. There's plenty of teams in this league where I could see Emanuel Quickley being the type of player who could be worth $30 million. The Raptors are not one of them. So it's a fit issue. It's not only an Emanuel Quickley issue. I'm not trying to come down on Emanuel Quickley. It's really a cascading issue, which is exacerbated by the roster around him, especially when that roster goes into Garrett Temple plus Colin Castleton plus Jonathan Mobile minutes. Like, that's going to be really rough, right? Anyways, this is very late. It is 1:40 in the morning. I've had a long, long day. My girlfriend comes back from San Francisco tomorrow. The house is a complete mess. I got to clean. And sometime tomorrow, I got to prepare for my PCL debate on Wednesday because I'm not trying to lose to Finesse West or whoever the hell that dude is. I basically called him an NPC. So if at this point I lose to an NPC, damn, that would suck. 41 minutes in. This wasn't a fun game to watch. If you missed it, please don't watch it. Don't watch it. Look forward to next season, man. You see that smiling Brandon Ingram on the bench. You see Scotty Barnes, sort of staring off into the abyss, wondering what the hell happened this season and all that stuff, right? But this is by design. This is by design. The only thing we're going to hope for at this point is that whatever the Raptors have to do to maintain the gap between themselves, Miami, and Chicago, keep doing it. Okay? You need to keep maintaining that gap between yourself, Miami, Chicago, and all the teams. You're not catching the teams ahead of you. I'm gonna let that dream fade away into the oblivion. Ain't gonna happen. You got plenty of guaranteed wins coming your way. What you need to make sure is that you don't somehow find yourself ass backwards into the play-in. Because I'm gonna tell you something. Previously, a couple of weeks ago, we were thinking only Chicago. Now at this point, you got two teams that are trying to drop out of the play-in right ahead of you. The worst thing that could happen is you end up on the final night of the season after months of trying to play the worst basketball of your life, and you end up in the play-in. Because now, what do? You go and tank the play-in? That's stupid. You got to try to win that game. But now it's like, can you even win that game? Because you've been playing AJ Lawson and fucking Colin Castleton all these minutes. So it's like, you can't. This can never happen. This cannot happen. So you must guard against this somehow. I don't care what you need to do. I don't care if you need to pay fines. I don't care if you need to sit Scotty, sit Jakob, sit RJ, sit IQ, sit everybody. I don't care. Forfeit the fucking game. Sign me to a 10-day. Sign Will Liu to a 10-day. Sign Sampson to a 10-day. Sign Josh Lewenberg to a 10-day. Dude, do whatever you got to do. But you cannot you got a 4.5 game advantage on both Miami and Chicago. 4.5 games is a nice cushion with 13 or so. Let me see how many games the Raptors have remaining the rest of the way here. Hang on one sec. Let me just pull this up. So Toronto has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. They have 13 games left. And you have a 4.5 game lead. And oh, by the way, you're facing one of those teams in Chicago. So, I mean, the hard thing for the Raptors is this team is in free fall right now, San Antonio. Washington has been competitive, but they're pretty much in free fall. Brooklyn is in free fall. Charlotte is in free fall. Philly is in free fall. Chicago is potentially in free fall. Portland has been competitive. Detroit has been competitive. Brooklyn is still in free fall. Like, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can go 9-4 easily. And I'm gonna tell you right now, it doesn't matter if you play Scotty Barnes. You could still go 9-4. That's the scary part about this. and 9-4. If the other team goes 4-9 over the same stretch, you in the play-in. We are not out of the woods yet, man. We are not out of the woods. And that is scary. That is really scary. So get prepared. Hold on to your butts, because there's going to be some really stinky ass performances, and you're going to be seeing some absolutely insane shit. And I would not be surprised at some point the league has to step in, because, again, it's one thing what the Raptors have been doing, what the Utah Jazz have been doing, holding out starters. It's going to be a completely new can of worms when you start seeing players deliberately trying to miss shots and shit down the stretch. Like, that's some next level shit. And yes, if I have to identify a couple of must loses, San Antonio must lose, Brooklyn must lose, Philly. Is there any more Philly games? Yeah, one more Philly. At Philly, must lose. Chicago, must lose. Brooklyn, must lose. Charlotte, not so much. San Antonio, must lose. Those are your must loses. You must lose those games. Come hell or high water. I don't care how you do it. To the, to the credit of the San Antonio Spurs, they're not as ruthlessly shameless an organization. I think they're gonna ethically try and lose games. They're playing Stephon Castle really major minutes. They're still playing some players, down the stretch. It's possible. But the best situation for the Raptors, honestly, is like, best case, you're going 4-9. That's the best case. That's if you do everything right and you do some really crazy things and you do some things that are going to get you really fined. You might be able to go 4-9. Most likely, you're probably going 7-6, man. I got bad news for you. You're probably going 7-6. And 7-6 is fine if, the teams behind you are relatively like, 4-8, 4-9. Okay. But if you go 7-6 and the other team goes 0-13, there goes your advantage. So it's a very simple equation. I hope the Raptors have done the math on this. And, again, it's not the end of the world, obviously. But I will remind you, the last time the Raptors finished 7th in the lottery, they moved up to 4th to draft Scotty Barnes. You move up to 4th this year, who knows what you might get. All right. Talk to y'all later. Have a great one. Enjoy your night. Make sure to hit like on this stream. Appreciate y'all. And no game until Thursday. Please tune in on Wednesday for the PCL. Show some support to Player's Choice. I'm gonna be the closing person on the PCL. So it's the closing debate on the PCL. Come watch me try and win $5,000. All right. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.